And I am excited to, given especially the news of the day with markets and the price of gasoline, to introduce Emily Skor, the CEO of Growth Energy, to talk a little bit about where biofuels fit into this whole kind of climate smart ag picture. Emily.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Do we fit into this climate smart market opportunity picture? Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this panel. I'm really thrilled to be here. It's always a pleasure as well to work with Secretary Vilsack, who is a longtime champion for low carbon biofuels. So I'm the CEO of Growth Energy. We are the nation's leading US biofuel trade association, and we represent the majority of ethanol producers in the country. I'll focus my remarks, my introductory remarks, on how biofuels like plant-based ethanol are a weapon in the fight against climate change, but our full potential has yet to be tapped. More specifically, how the US needs biofuels to decarbonize our transportation sector, how we are the vehicle to bring agriculture into our national climate strategy, and then, of course, the policies that we need to be successful. Simply put, the US cannot meet our ambitious climate goals without expanding the use of low carbon biofuels. 98% of the cars on the road today use liquid fuels. And the Energy Information Administration projects that gasoline or flex fuel powered vehicles will dominate new vehicle sales through 2050. We can and we must achieve progress and carbon reductions now and in the midterm with today's infrastructure, today's vehicles, and a homegrown supply chain. There's overwhelming consensus and a litany of research from DOE, USDA, EPA, California Air Resources Board, and others affirming ethanol's low carbon attributes. The latest from researchers at Harvard and Tufts shows that ethanol cuts greenhouse gas emissions by 46% compared to regular gasoline. And that advantage continues to increase thanks to innovations, including climate smart agriculture practices. Just a simple move nationwide from 10 to 15% ethanol blends would reduce our carbon emissions by more than 17.6 million tons. That's the equivalent of taking 4 million cars off the road every year. E15 is also up to 10 cents less per gallon than E10. In short, ethanol is a premier climate and human health solution that's available today, compatible with our existing auto fleet, and available and affordable for all communities. Ethanol can also play an important role in emissions-heavy industries that are most difficult to decarbonize, including aviation, and this is something the Secretary talked about earlier. With today's technologies, farm-based feedstocks, including ethanol and corn oil, are the only sources of clean, renewable energy available in large enough volumes to meet our nation's goals for sustainable aviation fuel. We are a key link between farmers and an ever-growing low-carbon economy. Ethanol has long been an economic driver for our rural economies. We purchased nearly $30 billion worth of corn last year to produce ethanol and an expanding array of bio-based products like high-protein animal feed, renewable chemicals, and corn oil. Our industry also supports more than 350,000 jobs nationwide, including family farmers and rural manufacturers hit the hardest by recent trade wars and supply chain disruptions. Like farmers, we innovate to produce more with less. For example, we're leading the charge on carbon capture, utilization, and storage capabilities, which could cut our carbon intensity in half. Our biogenic CO2 is 99% pure and can be sequestered or used for meat packing and refrigeration. Low carbon markets pay a premium for low carbon fuels, for example, in California and Oregon. And as biofuel producers drive down their carbon intensity to sell into these markets, farmers benefit in the form of premium prices for low carbon commodities. So we provide really significant opportunities to identify and financially incentivize climate smart agriculture. And that's key, the incentivizing of more cutting edge sustainable farming practices, like using less fertilizer through precision agriculture, planting cover crops, and nutrient management. As agriculture accounts for 50 to 65% of the ethanol life cycle emissions, we view this partnership as critical in our industry's quest to net zero emissions, which is within our reach. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Secretary Vilsack and Undersecretary Bonnie's approach to support voluntary adoption of sustainable practices and their understanding that the ag sector must have a financial impetus. Farmers and biofuel producers are eager to play a part in efforts to decarbonize, but their efforts must make financial sense. To accelerate our progress on the ground and in the sky, we need strong climate-forward policies that expand the role of biofuels in our transportation mix and incentivize investments in earth-smart agriculture. Those include a strong renewable fuel standard, the accelerated nationwide use of higher blends like E15, and incentives for sustainable farming and carbon intensity reductions based on accurate carbon modeling. So we always start with the RFS, and it's really imperative right now that EPA shift away from the old paradigm of using the RFS to manage corn oil politics, and instead use the RFS to embrace biofuels in the fight against climate change. We must also eliminate outdated market barriers and modernize the regulatory framework so we have unfettered year-round consumer access to E15. With E15 as the standard option at the pump, we would add $17.8 billion to the US GDP. $6.8 billion of that would come in the form of boosted corn production. We would also save motorists up to $12.2 billion each year in fuel costs, and I know that's something incredibly top of mind right now. Lastly, it's more important than ever. It really is that incentives and performance standards fully account for the climate benefits and the environmental profile of ethanol. We cannot afford to let regulators undervalue investments and improvement from kernel fiber ethanol and carbon capture to efficiencies on the farm and at the plant. Ultimately, family farmers, biofuel producers, and other agricultural innovators who are reducing their carbon footprints and developing earth-friendly practices and technologies are key to solving the climate crisis. Thank you for the time, and I really look forward to our Q&A.